Hi guys, welcome back. This is going to be a really quick video by my standards in which we're going to look at how wrapping and breaking text works in CSS. I know this isn't a sexy topic, but it is necessary to know, and it also complements the videos that we've done previously which cover text and fonts. If you don't want to watch this one, you can skip it, and I'll see you in the next one in which we're going to cover color systems in CSS, so your hexadecimals and your RGBs and your HSLs and so on. For those of you that are sticking around, we'll start by clarifying what we mean by wrapping and breaking text. Let's not assume that everybody understands what that means. There's a small, quiet town on the island of Anglesey in Wales called It is located off the northwest coast of Wales, and it is famous for having the longest place name in Europe. Well, if we have a really long string of characters like the name of this unpronounceable Welsh town, then on smaller screen sizes in particular, it's not going to fit. You might have a column of text, for example, that it throws off where you end up with these big unsightly gaps of white space. You might also be in a situation where some of the text is too long to be contained and could overflow its container. We can see that at particular screen widths. The string of characters extends beyond the right-hand edge of the box that it is contained in. CSS allows overflow to happen in this way because it has to, really. Doing something else would cut off text that we might need to be displayed, rendering it invisible. There's a CSS property that controls this called overflow, and setting it to hidden will cut or clip the offending overflowing text. This is not the default value. The text will overflow by default as we saw, and this is the same as setting overflow visible. Doing this allows us to still be able to read any overflowing text. You have to ask yourself which is preferable, being able to read text or maintain your design. I think being able to read intended text content is generally better, even if it is not particularly presentable. Content should come first, and we want text or copy to be read as intended by the author, even if it looks a little untidy. To prevent any overflow from happening in this way, we can use the CSS inline size property to ensure that any element box will contain content without any overflow. And to do this, we can set the min content property. When using this keyword, a content box will size itself to be the minimum size required for the content. We can also use the same keyword with the CSS width property to achieve the same result. Both CSS properties with this keyword will do the same thing. If for some reason you have a box that needs to remain a fixed size, which to be honest is fairly rare these days, then we can instead break words so that they cannot overflow at all. As I said, this is rare nowadays as we have devices of all different sizes, so our content boxes need to be adaptable in the modern day to size themselves to fit screens of all sizes. For that, we use relative rather than absolute or fixed units, so percentages or viewport units like VW and VH, for example, rather than, say, a fixed number of pixels. To ensure that words can't overflow in such circumstances, we can use the CSS overflow-wrap property. What this property does is break a word once it's too long to remain on its own line. Interestingly, well, maybe not, depending on how much of a nerd you are, this property was originally non-standard in CSS, and I've got to be careful what I say here, but it was possibly stolen from Microsoft Word, copying their text wrap functionality, basically. So the property was originally called word wrap. It was implemented originally by most browsers as word wrap, and CSS has since renamed the property to overflow wrap. Maybe so it doesn't fall foul of Microsoft lawyers. Even so, all browsers will interestingly still recognize word wrap as being the same property as overflow wrap, and it behaves exactly the same. So you can use word wrap and overflow wrap interchangeably. We use the property so rarely these days, so it doesn't matter a huge deal really, but if a use case does arise, I remind myself that the CSS specs lean towards overflow wrap. So they mention overflow wrap rather than word wrap when they are discussing the property, and its functions. Anyway, that's a nice little aside for you there. All of the exciting content is covered on this channel. An alternative property that you can try is word break, and this property is going to break the word at the point it overflows. Overflow-wrap or word wrap will break the word exactly where it sits and not try to reclaim the white space that the long word creates. Its aim is to put the word on a new line if it can. So using word break instead will cause a break in the word, even if placing the word onto a new line would allow it to display without breaking. And if I stretch the window and move it around to illustrate this, overflow wrap will allow the word to display on a full new line if it can. Word break doesn't care about that and will remove the white space and let the word break even if the long word could display in full on the following line. So this here illustrates the difference between overflow wrap and word break. So word break is useful if you want to prevent a large gap from appearing. Okay, so we're back to our long line overflowing the container. If you know exactly where you want a long string to break, you could use the HTML word break element instead, and this will cause a break wherever you place it. This can be useful. For example, if you're displaying a really long URL on a page, you can break in places that will make it easier to read and in places that make sense. The Yahoo Style Guide recommends that you should break a URL before punctuation, and this is so the reader doesn't mistake a hanging forward slash or something like that as the end of a URL. You see here now that when I drag the window around, the URL breaks only in places that make sense. When words are broken, like we've been seeing, we can use the CSS Hyphens property to add a magical dash or hyphen at the point of the break, which is pretty cool. If you use a value of auto, the browser will do the work for you and automatically break words at appropriate hyphenation points that make sense due to the dimensions of your page. So this is useful on varying screen sizes where the breaks could happen in different places. You see then, as I shift the screen around, that hyphens are appearing in appropriate places for breaks to happen in this blue box. Just keep your eye on the right side of the box as I shift the window around here. If you do want control where the hyphen goes, then we can set a value of manual and insert a hard or soft break character into the string. A hard break will always break, even if it's not necessary to do so. I can add one with the hyphen HTML entity. We see here that there's no need for a hyphen at all here, but one is added anyway. A soft break is made with the HTML entity of SHY and only breaks if the browser determines that breaking is needed. So if I shift the screen around, you see that the soft hyphen only appears when it's absolutely necessary. Okay, so I think we'll stop there. This is a short and fairly esoteric topic, but I thought I'd do something on it because it does come up. I'm not making these videos for views or clickbait. I'm just trying to cover some of the weird little quirks that you will see on the job that nobody in the room will know how to fix off of the top of their head. So let's make you that developer that can solve these little issues. You might encounter a layout problem one day where you have some strict columns and cannot get your text to align in a way that is conducive to the design. Say an online article where the text is wrapped around an image, or perhaps you're displaying a super long URL, or the website is for a newspaper and the site is designed in a way so it emulates the physical version of the newspaper. This video will be useful to refer to if you find yourself in one of those situations. So I hope you learned something new and now know how to look after the text if breaking, wrapping or hyphenation is required. I just want to say thank you so much for watching. I always appreciate your time. It really does mean a lot that you guys watch these videos. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one.